Hey guys, it's Emma and I'm back today for you with another video, and today I'm going to be doing my February 2023 wrap-up. Alright, I read 8 books in February and a lot of them were pretty big. Okay, so I'm actually pretty proud of myself for what I was able to read this month. And yeah, we're just gonna be going through all the books that I read, talk about what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them. Before we start, actually, I would really appreciate it if you guys would go down to the description box and look at all the links that I have there for you guys pertaining to stuff going on in the world right now. For example, what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, what's going on in Sudan, what's going on in Myanmar, amongst other things, right? So those links will all be down in the description box for you to look at, to interact with, and to share. And then down in the comment section, let me know whether or not you guys read any of these books, whether you guys like any of these books, whether you agree or disagree with anything I say about what I have to say about these books. What? You get what I mean. The usual, right? So with that being said, let's just get right on into it. So the first book that I read for February, and the only one I DNF'd this month, which, if you know me, very big accomplishment, and that book is The Kingdom of Back by Maria Lu. This is about Marianne Mozart, Mozart's sister. And she wants nothing more than to be able to play on the piano and to be remembered and to be as good as her brother. But her dad only really looks at her brother and is only looking at her for marriage material. And because she is so desperate to be able to find a way to share her music and to be able to make herself memorable to where she doesn't have to marry somebody, she ends up going into this magical world that we don't know much about. I DNF'd this book at 16% on page 51. There's nothing really monumental about the reason why I DNF'd it. I just didn't have an urge to ever quite really pick it up. The second book that I read for the month of February was The Meg by Steve Alten. This is about the Megalodon and humans discovering it and the subsequent tomfoolery that ensues when we try to protect it or capture it or kill it. I gave this 5 stars. This was so much fun. Okay, it had all the cheesiness, all the silliness, like everybody got their comeuppance in like gory ways. Just, it reminded me so much of like fun B movies like Sharknado. A lot of the times there would be points of view from the shark. That was, I thought, really cool. Like, for example, the first chapter is probably one of the coolest first chapters I've ever read in a book because it's set in the days of the dinosaurs and it follows the Megalodon hunting dinosaur. It was so cool, all right? As a dino geek.
You don't stop playing. I mean, if they give me one right now, I'll tear it up live.
All right. One of the big books that I read this month was Children of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 3rd book in the Dune series. This I gave 5 stars. Children of Dune is my favorite. Out of all of the books in the series, Children of Dune is my favorite. I cried during this book. It was so good, all right? I loved how much political intrigue was in this book. Literally, everybody was trying to sabotage and one-up the other, all right? It was one of those things where it's like, okay, no, she's trying to sabotage him, but she's allied with her, and she is also trying to sabotage her while she's also allied with him. Meanwhile, somebody else who's completely new has been allied with him this whole time. It was so cool to see how people essentially tripped everybody up. It was awesome. This book was really cool to see where the story went, where it took our characters like Aaliyah and Duncan and Gurney and Jessica and Leto and Ganima. It was just such a good installment, and I think my only gripe about it is Frank Herbert's writing style in and of itself, all right? My only gripe with the Dune series, it's just sometimes the monologuing, the dialogue gets so wordy and so abstract that it's like, what the fuck did I just read? I love this book so much because it just has so many heartwarming and gut-wrenching things happen to people that we've read about for so long. The next book that I read for the month of February was Sistah Samurai by Tatiana Obey. This is about a Sistah Samurai who is the last one of her occupation, and she is a little further along in life, and she has a lot of trauma surrounding just what exactly led to the fall of all of the other Sistah Samurais, and all of these demons, for whatever reason, are bothering her, and she just wants to be left alone and be able to go home. All right, so it's all about her trip from the village to her house. I gave this book 3 stars. All right, I had a blast reading this. The writing style most definitely helps because even though at some points it wasn't for me, this writing style makes you fly through the book. All right, because there is so much shit that happens in here all at once in such a small amount of time and in such a small setting, I guess. Because even though, you know, we are fighting demons, all right, it's, the world building's kind of small, kind of constricted, which, I don't know, kind of helps because there's not that much else to focus on. There were just so many nods to Black culture mixed into a classic anime story with so many classic nods to anime. It was just such a really fun time, and I wholeheartedly recommend this book, especially if you are a fan of anime. Particularly, I think somebody recommended this as like kind of a read-along if you like Afro Samurai, which is on my list to watch. So I'm definitely gonna be watching that this month. Okay, this one is probably the most disappointing read of the whole month, if I'm gonna be honest here, and that is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. This is about a kid who goes into the West and finds that the scalp trade is alive and well in some of the most disturbing ways possible. I gave this 1 star. All right, I can confidently say with every fiber of my being, all right, that this book is one of the most boring books I think I've ever read in my life. I adored The Road, all right, by Cormac McCarthy. That is probably one of the most disturbing books I've ever read. Therefore, everybody saying that this is one of the bloodiest books ever read. Did we read the same book? Anything disturbing that did happen, didn't really have any substance behind it. If anything disturbing happened, it would happen, we'd see it, and then we'd just walk right on by. You know, there wasn't really much time dedicated to it. However, with that being said, something that was most definitely given a shit ton of time dedicated towards it was the disturbing shit that happened to the animals. All right, thank you, Blood Meridian. I now know of at least 15 more ways that a horse can die horrifically. Thank you so much for that. There was no balance to be seen, heard of, smelt, all right, between the disturbing shit that happened to the humans and the time dedicated to those, and the disturbing shit that happened to the animals and the time dedicated to those. Please don't get me wrong, I understand it's the West, it's the Old West, it's the Wild Wild West, and people drop like flies here. All manner of creatures drop like flies here. But the shit that was done to the animals and the allotted time dedicated to them was just overkill to me. And I guess I can appreciate the metaphor with like the preacher being the devil on earth and, you know, all the shit that he causes being the devil's ministries or whatever. But other than that, this book was boring. This book was so like tear-jerkingly boring. The next book that I read this month was God Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the 4th book in the Dune series, and I gave this 3 stars. I'm pretty sure it was in the foreword of God Emperor that Brian Herbert said, oh yeah, no, the latter half of the Dune Chronicles, aka books 4, 5, and 6, are even wordier than books 1, 2, and 3 were. And I'm sitting over here like, really? So I went into this with lower expectations, but I left with higher praise than I thought I would. This one and the next one, I think, are the best books in terms of storytelling. Maybe not the actual story, like in the book, but as far as storytelling mediums like plot, pacing, character development, everything like that, these 2 books do the best job. My main praise regarding that is that this book had two, not one, 2 fully described battle scenes. All right, which is my second biggest gripe with this whole series. All right, Frank Herbert does a lot of telling and not showing. That's what pissed me off in Dune, because there was one huge climactic event that we didn't see. It happened in between chapters, and we were told about it maybe an hour or 2 after the event happened in the book. And I'm sitting here thinking, really? It destroys your emotional stakes. Here, however, the battle scenes were fully described. We saw people die. We saw people get attacked. It was great. All right. Frank Herbert was really out pampering us with this book. All right. And then the character of Leto II was fascinating to read about. The dude is a tyrant, all right, but he's a tyrant with layers to him. And it was just really intriguing to see why he made these decisions and, you know, what these decisions have led him to, because this is set like, how long? It's like 3,500 years after Children of Dune, all right? So we see where everybody is, where Leto is, what this amount of time has done to him, and it was just really fascinating to read about. However, with that being said, I would not want to have a conversation with Leto II in real life because the man cannot give a straight answer to save his life. But as far as an installment in the Dune Chronicles, I think this was pretty solid. With that being said, the next book that I read for the month of February was Heretics of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is book number 5 in the Dune Chronicles and my second favorite. It combines what I loved about Children of Dune, aka the political intrigue, and what I loved about God Emperor of Dune, the fully fleshed out battle scenes, and puts them in one book. And I loved it. All right. The characters in here were awesome as well. Like, I had so many characters that I was rooting for. In terms of a storytelling medium, I think it was even better than God Emperor of Dune. All right. Because the pacing was great. The characters were great. All right. The clues for exactly what you're trying to figure out in the story that's being continued were all evenly laid out. The only reason that this isn't 5 stars and isn't therefore closer to Children of Dune is because there's one battle that I wish we would have seen. And it just reminded me so much of why I was kind of pissed with Dune. So that's unfortunate. Also, we learned so many disgusting secrets that if you go back, or if you just think about the shit that is implicated through these secrets in the former books, it's a lot more insidious, and I really, really enjoyed that. This book was monumentally easier to understand, all right? There is so much less just abstractness, wordiness, just people say what they mean. People get mostly to the point, and that, all right, even just mostly to the point compared to all of the other books, was a breath of fresh air. In terms of my ranking, this one is my second favorite, most definitely. The last book that I read for the month of February is probably my favorite of the entire month, and that is Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. All right, this book is about a kind of alternate history America where the prison system has been commercialized, and the prisoners fight in these gladiator style battles in order to get free, and it's broadcast live as also a TV show, and we follow a bunch of the prisoners as they fight in these battles. I gave this book 5 stars. All right, this book was gut-wrenching, heartwarming, enlightening, and devastating all at the same time. Okay, like, I annotated it. It's that much more impactful because this whole book is a commentary on the prison system, on capitalism, on consumerism, on parasocial relationships, how people view and treat prisoners in and outside of prison. This whole book was so smart, in my opinion, in its execution of these ideas and its discussions of these ideas. Something else that I loved about this book was that the ending, yes, it's bittersweet, which we all know that I love bittersweet endings, but it's also such a gut punch. Okay, because at least for me it was, I was under the assumption that something completely different was happening when something completely different from that was actually happening. This book is just an experience. It's devastating, it's enlightening, it's fun to read, all right? It's such a good way to have these conversations. It's a very entertaining way of getting this information and making it stick. So you guys, those were all the books that I read during the month of February. I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope we all have a good reading month, no matter what, in March. I hope we can all read books that we like. Hopefully we don't have any DNFs. This month was pretty solid in terms of books that I liked, the books that I enjoyed. I hope that we can just continue that for at least 5 more months. I don't know, maybe pushing the bargain there, but what are you gonna do? So you guys, with that being said, I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope that you continue to look out for more stuff on my channel. I hope that you guys are staying safe, and I hope that you guys have a good rest of your day.